One aspect of League of Legends that enables it to retain engagement all year round despite playing on the exact same map with the exact same win condition is the ever-changing climate of its champions. Every 2 weeks, adjustments are made to the roster to increase the power of some and decrease the power of others, making it to where every so often you find a handful of champions dominating the meta and then a different group of champions dominating later. It's that very dynamic that makes it all the more impressive when a champion finds a way to remain popular throughout the year, a testament to their consistency and enjoyment of play. Down in bot lane, the role has perennially been known to feature the lowest champion diversity of the 5 roles, namely because close to all of its inhabitants belong to only one of 2 classes, Marksman and Mage. Even so, never in any other role do you see such monopolization of play rate than here, with over 3/4 of all picks comprising one of the 5 champions, Kai'Sa, Ezreal, Jinx, Caitlyn, and Jhin. For today, I'll be discussing League's Power 5 and why they're the most played AD carries in the game, seemingly no matter what time of the year it is. To understand what makes these champions so popular to begin with, we need to establish what is expected of a marksman. With the exception of Caitlyn, I made a Why Everyone Plays episode on the other 4 members, and if you go back and look through each episode, you'll notice a couple elements that are shared amongst them, which happen to be the foremost reason why they're played so often to begin with. Above all else, the primary non-negotiable focus and directive of a marksman is to deal damage, hence the role's legacy name, Attack Damage Carry. They're expected to contribute the lion's share of their team's DPS every game and are afforded the means to do so by way of how their class is designed. First and foremost, range. Range implies a wider threat radius in that you can apply pressure to enemies at a distance, thereby making said pressure more consistently exertable. All marksmen carry some semblance of range to ensure they can tap into their power more reliably. In fact, one of the biggest reasons why Nilah, despite her overwhelming latent damage output, is among the least popular bot laners in the game is due to the fact that her range, or lack thereof, makes it difficult for her to consistently apply her pressure. Second factor is sustained damage output. Being primarily auto-attack based, marksmen have access to more scaling methods than that of your typical ability caster. For the majority of the latter group, the only real ways to increase their damage output are attack damage or ability power, and then ability haste. Barring additional means of scaling that some champions might carry, that's all you get to work with. Marksmen, however, get a bit more than that. They of course scale off of AT like other physical damage dealers, and attack speed is essentially the auto-attack counterpart to ability haste. But on top of that, they have crit chance and on-hit effects, allowing for their DPS to scale exponentially over time. Those 2 elements are the fundamental engine powering marksmen and their late game strength. They can dish out tons of damage and subsequently dish it out more readily than most other classes. Likewise, however, marksmen are similarly characterized by their lack of personal safety, both in what they have and what they build. Because they had to invest all of their item slots into building DPS, prior to this year they simply didn't have the space to build any defensive items, despite ironically being the class that stood to benefit from them the most. Fortunately for them, however, their privilege of sequestering your boost to a separate item slot alleviated that issue somewhat. Now, having laid the groundwork for marksmen, we get to take a look at why the Power 5 in particular get played so much more often than their peers. What I find most intriguing is that oftentimes the Power 5 carry below average win rates all year round, yet people generally default to playing them over champions who ostensibly sport a better win rate. Best way to ascertain that is by going through each member one at a time, beginning with the most conventional of the 5, Caitlyn. As the long-standing pick of the bot lane, Caitlyn attributes her reputation to stability. If ever there was a champion known for being solid and reliable, it would be her, embodying the 2 strengths of a marksman practically religiously. In stark contrast to her rival and Zoned counterpart Jinx, whose MO is all about reckless destruction, Caitlyn's entire kit demands precision and focus. Being primarily single target, her DPS can far eclipse that of most other marksmen in the late game. Headshot makes it so every so often, Caitlyn's next auto attack deals immense damage, potentially north of triple the strength of her normal attack, which is the reason why you find her sometimes two-shotting a person at full build. Boasting the highest unconditional attack range of any champion in the game at 650, she can apply her pressure from a distance too far for most melee champions to even gap close on, not to mention her remarkable usage of rapid fire cannon extending her auto attack range to well over 800. Everything else in her kit further lends itself to her penchant for precision. Built over Peacemaker has some of the highest scaling a basic ability can have, under the condition that it only deals the full damage to either the first enemy in range or to enemies who recently stepped in a trap. Speaking of which, both Yordle Snap Trap and 90 caliber net instantly prime a headshot with double Caitlyn's base attack range, allowing her to shoot enemies across incredible distances and, in the case of the former, apply even more damage to effective targets, all of which culminating into the keystone reason why Caitlyn's a member of the Power 5. She's safe and consistent. With that much range and that much damage output, there's never a situation where Caitlyn can't contribute to a fight. Unlike most of the marksmen who have to reasonably expose themselves to enemy retaliation, Caitlyn's able to set down traps and fire from a safe distance. If anyone tries to engage on her, she can 90 caliber net to dash back before blasting her pursuer with a buffered Q and headshot. Like a real sniper, the only way to beat Caitlyn is to take her by surprise, usually through exploiting her blind spots. But if she positions correctly, it can be onerous to do so by virtue of her extended range and control. There is always some semblance of agency the player has in dealing with the situation at hand while playing Caitlyn. Having briefly mentioned her counterpart, I suppose we can talk about her next, Jinx. Much like how Caitlyn follows the methodology Piltover and its people extol, order, control, and coordination, Jinx could not be more emblematic of Zaun. Disorder, volatility, and chaos. The two are fundamentally identical to each other in that they both possess among the highest attack ranges of any marksman in the game, with Jinx in particular carrying the highest actual attack range of any marksman at a staggering 725 when using Fishbones. Moreover, through Fishbones, Jinx's auto attacks do AoE damage, enabling her to blast multiple targets at once, and after purchasing Runon's Hurricane, she gets to fire 3 rockets per shot, resulting in her trademark hyper-carry late-game DPS. Just like how Caitlyn's always able to exert pressure by way of her extended range, Jinx has a similar element of guarantee to her. Her combination of rockets, W, and ultimate make her one of the best at blowing up people while being far enough away to make it difficult to engage her head-on. And most importantly, everything in her kit is designed to function at its best the more chaotic a fight becomes, not the least of which being her passive, Get Excited. The difference between a Jinx with her passive active and without it is practically night and day. If she scores a takedown, she becomes equally as, if not more dangerous than the likes of Katarina, Viego, and Samira by giving her a considerable increase in tempo and attack speed, letting her chase down fleeing enemies or reposition against enemy attempts to shut her down. Secondarily, Jinx's overall pressure relies on fights turning into giant clusterfucks. The more densely packed enemies are, the more damage she can do. Remember, her rockets do AoE damage, meaning when factoring in Runon's Hurricane, if 3 enemies are all standing right next to each other, Jinx's rockets attack each enemy 3 times, causing a single auto attack to potentially deal 5 times Jinx's AD in damage when factoring critical strikes and Affinity Edge. Then of course, Super Mega Death Rocket also deals AoE damage, possibly executing multiple members of the enemy team at once. While Caitlyn excels at picking out targets one at a time, Jinx excels at blowing up the entire enemy team simultaneously. Either way, the bottom line is the same for both. They get to attack from a far distance and dish out overwhelming amounts of DPS once they get their items going. On the flip side, we have Kai'Sa, who to my knowledge has been the most popular ADC in League's history by play rate year after year, pretty much since the day she came out. By all accounts, she's the most successful champion in League of Legends based on popularity. Why is that though? Unlike the previous two, Kai'Sa is not really known for her range. Quite the opposite, they actually had to buff her attack range because when she came out it was too short. Even now she's often forced to confront enemies in close quarters to apply pressure. But what might initially appear to be an inconvenience is made less so by her being deliberately equipped to handle those situations in question. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, the biggest motivator for playing Kai'Sa is that she's one of the only dueling marksmen in League of Legends, being essentially the spiritual successor to Vayne. Kai'Sa's single target damage output is damn near second to none. Her second skin passive makes her one of the few ADCs in the game to deal % health damage and therefore shred through most champions even without having to purchase an armor pen item, with the DPS being split between equal parts physical and magic, further making it difficult to itemize against her. Her kit's also engineered to get her as close to being self-sufficient as an ADC could get. Normally, marksmen have to rely on their teammates to provide cover and protection, but Kai'Sa can be one of the more independent marksmen when played correctly. After getting upgraded, Supercharge grants half a second of invisibility and a means of repositioning quickly, letting her break enemy focus and dodge any major skill shots the opponent might throw at her. But the real reason for her self-sufficiency is her trademark ultimate, Killer Instinct, a semi-global dash at blinding speed that grants her a massive shield upon arrival, greatly augmenting her survivability but most critically making her the only marksman in the game capable of playing a back-to-front playstyle. So even though Kai'Sa's auto-attack pressure is inherently short range, her threat range is potentially greater than that of Jinx and Caitlyn. At the drop of a hat, she can turn from an ADC into an assassin and execute your backline herself, which in turn gives her very high agency in that if it proves too hazardous to fight front to back for her, she can look for an alternate angle and blast through the enemy team from behind. Kai'Sa is one of the best playmaking champions of a class famously known to have to rely on their teammates to make plays for them, and while she might not add the same explosive teamfight pressure as a Jinx nor the one-tap potential as Caitlyn, her DPS is most certainly a force to be reckoned with. The remaining two members of the Power 5 will have you question if they truly carry the same value as the three I just went over, but trust me when I say, Ezreal and Jhin are equally deserving of their spot as well. I got a lot of flack for not playing around the whole 4 motif with Jhin in past videos, so just for you guys, Jhin will be our 4th member of the Power 5 to talk about. Definitely the most unconventional of the 5 marksmen, in that his entire gimmick is that you can't rapid fire with him. But don't make the mistake of assuming that since he doesn't fight like a machine gun, he doesn't do a lot of damage, cause... no, he most certainly can. Before even getting to that, let's discuss range, because Jhin has that and then some. Marksmen generally have the lowest utility of all classes in the game, allocating most if not all their power to pure DPS, but one of the hallmark aspects to Jhin is utility. Deadly Flourish, Captive Audience, and Curtain Call each carry noticeable benefit for his team. W affords him a long-lasting route at a far distance to lock down enemies being attacked by his team, or he can use it to peel enemies who try to pursue him. Captive Audience enables him to place what are effectively wards around the map that reveal and slow enemies, not only divulging their position on the map, but also marking them for a route. And finally, Curtain Call. Yes, it is meant to deal damage, but a more underrated aspect of it is the sheer oh shit feeling it gives the enemy team. The ostentatious display of the area cone might seem counterproductive in that it blatantly declares to the enemy team that Jin's staring them down with a sniper rifle. However, that in and of itself can be weaponized to force enemies into a panic. On occasion, good Jhin players deliberately hold on to their shots to keep the enemy team guessing and backed into a corner, letting his teammates capitalize on that to push their advantage. Alternatively, Jhin can use Curtain Call as a means of cover fire, discouraging the enemy team from pressing the attack, if even for a moment, to buy his team time to get away. Utility aside, what Jhin lacks in quantity of attacks, he makes up for with quality. Through his passive, he basically converts attack speed into attack damage, making each of his autos effectively do Caitlyn headshot levels of damage, especially the 4th shot, which innately carries insane amounts of missing health damage. I've seen Jhin 4th shots do north of 1500 damage in the late game against enemy squishies, plus more attack speed gives him more movement speed when landing critical strikes or W roots on enemy champions. The end result is the same though, Jhin can always do something. The slower rate of fire makes him more easy to pick up for beginners who aren't the best at high APM attack moving, and his utility and long range ensure he always has something he can do. Last but not least, we have Ezreal. Ezreal's biggest draw is that while he's not much of an auto attacker, he's without question the safest marksman in the game. Jinx may have the longest auto attack range, Kai'Sa might have the longest thread range, and Jhin might have the longest actual range, but Ezreal is a king of neutral. Not a single marksman comes anywhere close to beating Ezreal's neutral game. Mystic Shot's a very simple ability with a clear purpose to it. Long range poke. Ezreal never has to, and in fact prefers not to engage in a full-blown fight if he can help it. Ideal conditions for him are when neither team is able to advance the game state, where he can spend most of that time repeatedly pelting you with Qs and Ws to chunk you down. If at any point a fight does start, Arcane Shift is practically flash on a basic ability that can also damage the nearest enemy and proc Essence Flux. There's nothing really all that special about him besides that. His entire gist is safety and poke. He can apply pressure at a distance impossible to contest even by other marksmen, and he's trickier to engage on by virtue of his blink, giving him a way to immediately put distance between him and whoever he's attacking, with the main challenge of playing him being that he's entirely skillshot dependent, causing his pressure to not be guaranteed compared to auto attackers. Once more though, it's the element of agency and consistency within him that draws people to him. You'll never run into a scenario where Ezreal is unable to do something, and while he may not be a crit scaling marksman, because he has so much range, he can DPS enemies in spots where no other marksman can, thereby giving him more consistent pressure. Under no circumstances can he win a head-on confrontation against any other marksman on even ground, but what he can do is chunk them to half HP before they can even get within striking range of him. Consistent damage output and consistent range, altogether making him a very high agency marksman. Ultimately, the central aspect shared across all members of the Power 5 is their capacity for agency. They each have something or multiple things that enable them to contribute something for their team, and rarely if ever do they come across a situation where they're totally helpless. Other marksmen may have similar things that they can do, but what really underlines the Power 5's popularity is that they're almost never a bad pick. They have a consistent game plan, they can consistently execute on that game plan, and that game plan is consistently effective regardless of the meta. There may be moments in time where Lucian, Aphelios, Yunara, Smolder, Ashe, what have you jump in popularity and reach Power 5 levels of pick rate, but when all is said and done, there isn't a moment in time where the Power 5 isn't dominating the metagame. What do you guys think about the Power 5? Do you agree with my points on each member, or do you think someone else deserves to be there instead of one of them? Let me know in the comments down below. That'll be all for today, so if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you'd like to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other champion group discussion videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.